Hello and welcome again to the Glass Prism podcast, a show that explores important stories with a unique perspective. You must have heard of ChatGPT by now, because if you haven't, you are missing out, big time. It's a powerful language model developed by OpenAI that has the ability to understand and respond to natural language inputs just like a human being would. This allows it to engage in realistic, human-like conversations, and it does it very well, making it an incredibly versatile tool for a wide range of applications. Most of you most likely have already fancied yourself a try on the new piece of technology that promises us a hassle-free future. You can ask it for vegan-friendly recipes, write your resumes and cover letters for you, solve tricky math problems for your differentials class, or even summarize a book for you if you had required readings. It can do a lot, including writing for me this very intro, because it has. That's right, most of this intro has been generated by ChatGPT itself. So by now, it's clear that its practical uses are vast and varied, and it has the potential to greatly improve our lives and the way we work and communicate. But ChatGPT is not special, because this AI revolution, it's happening everywhere around us in almost every industry known to man. Soon we'll have automated away many jobs, many tedious tasks, and expanded our human potential beyond imagination. As much as this excites me, it equally concerns me about the changes it may bring. The first set of concerns raises important questions about the future of humanity and our relationship with machines and technology that we talk about today in this episode of The Glass Prism. And so my colleague Talha and I talk about some of the implications of ChatGPT and its AI siblings, and offer our 2 cents from a neuroscience student and a business finance graduate perspective. But most importantly, we delve into the nuances that no one has yet addressed about what this could potentially mean for you. So hold on tight, because this discussion is a fascinating one indeed. This is the Glass Prism podcast. Enjoy. So, a little bit of background for ChatGPT. Bro, why did they call it
ChatGPT? It's like, isn't it ChatGPT?
No.
I'm pretty sure it's ChatGPT.
No.
Yeah.
It's PT.
No shot.
No, bro, you're tripping.
No. You're
All right.
tripping.
Anyways, while you're doing that search and basically proving me right, I'm gonna tell you some background about it. So, it was developed by OpenAI. All right, and they are an AI service corporation. They're partially funded by
right.
Microsoft. I know I'm right. Okay, they created an AI chatbot, right? Or in other words, basically in ChatGPT's words, a natural language processing model.
Mm-hmm.
That's the technical term for it. That literally is like your own JARVIS from Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
And it can answer questions with great detail, as we already discussed, and can basically potentially substitute Google as a search engine, or at least its bigger brother.
More
GPT-3.
refined, cuts out the process of you looking for the stuff that you need.
So basically, in its database, it has a list of links that it can possibly use, and some from Wikipedia, some from different.
I heard Reddit
links.
is one of them as well.
Yeah. So what it will do is that it will search through all of these links specifically within that domain. Not more than that. It won't ever use any.
Because it's artificial
services.
intelligence. There's a limit to how far it can go given the
No,
data.
It can.
Given the data.
They limited it because of the fact that they knew some people would abuse it. So what happened was there's something called GPT-3. Okay. Which is the GPT-3 is the flagship software AI by OpenAI that integrates ChatGPT and all other very different domains. DALL-E, whatever it is, all of it's in there. Okay. It can act as a search engine, but it's much better than Google in terms of giving you answers and everything, as we've already discussed for ChatGPT.
That's because when you use Google, you want to accomplish a task or something, but you have to go through the work of actually finding the information and getting it from the sources, whereas ChatGPT gives you what you want and what you need.
Exactly.
Before we sort of, because we're going to talk a bit more about AI, artificial intelligence in general, but
Yeah.
what is artificial intelligence? How does it work? So, I mean, the simple way to putting it, I guess, is it uses data. Data is its fuel. It uses inputs from that data, and basically there's an output, a decision, right? And artificial intelligence uses a core concept called machine learning, where which is essentially it's generalized learning. It's what you call like a textbook, right? Where the AI, artificial intelligence, the robot will learn using machine learning. It will learn the concepts and what is right, what is wrong, how to make a decision, right?
Yeah,
Based
and the
on machine
developers
learning.
decide like
Yes.
how to architect that machine
Based on
learning
formulas and
based
functions,
on what it wants
models.
it to create the outcome for using
Yes.
the data.
Yes, that's its general basis. Artificial intelligence is basically acting upon that machine learning data that it's
Yeah.
determined, that algorithm that it's created, it acts upon it. And so the next time when you ask it something like, hey, should I wear a raincoat today? What it'll do is like in its algorithm drive the final answer between yes or no, right? Given what the weather is like, whatever thing, right? And it'll give you a recommendation. Yes, wear a raincoat if it's raining outside.
Yeah, so you used to be a student. What do you think students have been using this stuff for?
So I was about to ask you, from what I've seen, people have been recently using ChatGPT to develop personal essays for school topics. I mean, I'm out of school at the moment, so I haven't used it, but people have recently used it for essays, and it develops really good essays apparently.
Better than you would expect, not necessarily
Okay.
really great. It's better than you.
So
expect.
is that not a misuse of ChatGPT as well?
Listen, it's a misuse of how the education system is trying to test for our competence. If a computer can basically go very quickly and just like put together all the information and put it really neatly into a 5 paragraph essay. And by the way, they do have a limit. So you can't ask it for a 3,000 word essay. What it will do is basically give you the essay, but it won't be 3,000 words, nowhere near. And that's why a lot of people were basically not doing their work properly if they just copied it and pasted it onto their assignments.
You could potentially base it just off of certain topics, right? So you know how you break down an essay into different topics?
Yeah,
you could just search and be like, hey, could you
100%.
get me something about this?
There
this
are
topic?
ways around it. There's
Okay,
always
yeah.
ways around it. So ChatGPT, because of the fact that it was like its developers really tried hard to make sure that certain people do not misuse it in any way. There's always a way for you to coerce ChatGPT to make it work for you. And a lot of these strategies are actually available online. So people have been abusing it regardless.
Okay.
Like it will say like, oh, we cannot give you the answer to this because we're a language model, whatever. And you just need to like rearrange some certain words, say a few other words. Like hypothetically, if you did, the way that you would trick a kid into like doing
Giving you
something
the answers,
for
yes.
you. So that's what it's doing. But for CS students, for computer science students,
Yeah.
much more helpful.
Really? How so?
Because there will be like an assignment that will say like code for me the following function, and then all you really need to do is ask ChatGPT and it will give you that code. So anything solid, it can do very well. In terms of coding, that was very successful. Funnily enough, the arithmetic and all that stuff, it's not great at. Like sometimes, even if you ask it the most simplest questions, 4 plus 14, it will get that wrong sometimes. And it'll give you like a very confident explanation as to why 4 plus 14 equals 58. And it will tell you, like, it will like very confidently tell you. There's actually a Discord server with all the different users who are using ChatGPT just to give some feedback, have discussions with other members who are using that software. A lot of the people who are discussing its features had a really tough time trying to figure out why does it keep getting certain questions that require a much higher level of understanding in a specific domain of education. Let's say if you require it to answer for you a calculus question, it'll do it for you very well. But sometimes when you just give it like simple arithmetic, or maybe if you tell it to write for you a poem, it will do that for you. But if you give it like, say, write a poem in 2 syllables about, I don't know, like how cold it is in Alaska.
Right.
It won't do that for you properly. But when you give it another topic, it does it. And it's odd because now like it can count in 2 syllables. But it can't why can't it do in all situations?
Gotcha.
And to be honest with you, I'm not going to act like I know enough about it
As
to
to
tell
why
you like
it
why
happened.
that happens. I doubt that even developers would know because this is why it it ended up being pushed that way, right?
Yeah, right.
I believe there are two reasons why ChatGPT was released to the public. By the way, it's not going to stay free for long.
Okay.
So right now, the first reason is to gain human feedback. So basically, it's just a pilot at this point. People are using it to help understand where are its blind spots.
Its limitations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that will help tweak the software to make it more helpful in the future once it officially gets released. The second thing is obviously a marketing strategy, because if you take it into if you compare it to all the other different software services that we currently use, Netflix, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, like Netflix took like 5 years to reach 1 million users. Facebook took 10 months. Instagram did it in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
This did it in like 2 days.
Yeah.
So just one, that's insane.
Right.
That's really, really big.
And another factor to this marketing, they brought the attention away from just a general like behind the scenes use of AI. You know how like we don't acknowledge 78% of technology that we use in our daily lives incorporates AI. And it's quite interesting to realize it's like a pretty big margin or discrepancy. And I think this stunt basically brought into people's lives the fact that AI is a thing. AI is happening, and it's not only just ChatGPT. Recently, it's what are those AI art developing? Basically,
yeah, there's a really a popular app actually called Lensa.
Yeah,
it basically takes 10 to 20 pictures of you, different lighting, different angles of your face, and it will create art.
And this is not filters.
Face.
This is not filters over here. This is actual art. Like it recreates an image of you, essentially.
Yeah, but what it does actually, and by the way, this is one of those criticisms of AI is that when we're talking about ChatGPT versus, for example, Google, if you use Google, you're using AI, because even the search engine
has AI. Yes.
Yeah. So that's AI, and so is ChatGPT, and so is Lensa. Lensa basically just takes like a bunch of art from the internet, and without the consent of their creators, they'll take that and use that as inspiration for the photos that they superimpose using your selfies to create whatever creative art they wanted to create. And it's not perfect, right? It's not perfect from a sense that not all the pictures are going to come out right. Some of them are very clearly plagiarized, as in like they're so super.
What are they just copying Van Gogh style?
Yeah,
or
they've just copied 100% from whatever it is.
But I feel like that's how AI works, right?
Photo on there.
I believe that's just how AI works, right? You mean as in they use like a very similar picture and just put your face on it? Is what you're saying?
Yeah,
not actually recreate
they'll take like
the
a painting. No, they won't recreate anything.
Oh, okay, I see.
They'll take a painting or something like that, or something.
So like the Mona Lisa, and then just put your face on it.
Yeah, they can. They would do that, and they depended on a vast database of images and pictures, all taken from like hundreds of different creators, and they used those as inspiration to create your images that it pops back at you. Right. That's all it does. It's not that impressive, to be honest with you. The outcome of it, though, was very popular because obviously, like, it looked like, wow, I'm not gonna ever have to like pay somebody to do this for me for $5-10. I can just do it right here and get like a whole catalog of 100 pictures, all of them of which like are very unique designs, seemingly. But obviously, if you compare it to other people who are also using that app, everybody else has
it's
the
very
same
similar.
thing.
Like if you type in the same sort of requests, right, or type of art, it gives you the same style often. It's crazy. Definitely, it relates to sort of the topic of how AI can sort of replace occupations and tasks as well.
Yeah. So the first question that everybody asked as soon as this thing released was whether it's going to make Google obsolete. What are your thoughts on that?
For ChatGPT?
Yeah.
I don't believe it will. It seems like it could, but my concern is the fact that humans, I think, in nature, would rather explore rather than have the answer given to them directly.
Wow, interesting theory.
Because I think humans have a knack, curiosity, right? Have this general desire to learn, right? Using explorative measures rather than being given an answer to something, right? They want to discover it for themselves, and I feel like that's an aspect that Google does take away, right? When Google's introduced, did take away, but just made it easier for people. But
I don't know,
ChatGPT
man.
would eventually get rid of that. I don't know. Is it just me who feels like that's needed?
Yeah, I'd have to disagree with you, mate. Like a lot of people are very lazy.
Want to be spoon fed? The answer.
No, seriously, man. It's just about a convenience. It's always been like that.
Well, yeah,
Throughout
I mean,
the history of capitalism, it's always been the most convenient option for the cheapest amount. It's always won. It's always won
Right.
the market. People don't want to keep searching through Google. There might be a case for the idea of the richness of the answer and how did you even get to that answer?
Right.
Right? Because sometimes you might ask it a question, it'll pop out an answer. You don't understand half of the stuff that it just told you. You don't know where it came from.
Right, because you mentioned ChatGPT uses various types of links and
Exactly,
database, right? And it's
to-
restricted too. It's not like it's everything in the world.
But GPT-3, that's the service that ChatGPT is integrated to. It will give you the link to where that information came from. So
it
in
does
case
give
you
you
wanted to read more, it will just give you like a brief summary. That is an intelligent way of building a software that can help you understand how to go through all the fluff of Google and like all the BS links that have nothing to do with the question that you just asked, and you go straight to like, okay, I see this is the answer. Let me go into all the links and understand more. So it doesn't necessarily take away from Google's optionality. It definitely does just gives you a more concise answer.
Okay.
So that's a plus.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like for example, if I ask my phone, like a voice assistant, right? That's an
Yeah.
example of an AI. It basically replaces the aspect of typing up a question, and it gives me a specific answer based on Google results, correct? But there's a limit to it because it doesn't go into specifics, like for writing me a whole paragraph as to what I'm looking for, right? It's very limited. And that I would assume, like, okay, for convenience sake, I would like to be spoon-fed an answer. Like, it depends on the question I ask it, in my opinion.
Yeah. But what do you think about this? Because they've basically said the main reason that this isn't necessarily already commonplace and that it wasn't released to everybody was there's an ex-Alphabet employee. Alphabet owns Google, obviously. Says that scaling such a business to billions of daily user requests is going to be way too expensive, because for every search, it's about 10 times to 100 times more expensive than a Google
The
search.
processing, right?
Yeah.
Power. Okay.
Processing and operating power for the operating costs alone for ChatGPT right now is actually about $3 million a day.
Jeez.
And so if you were to use Google's numbers of how many people have made searches, for example, today, they would actually end up with close to like $485 million every day they would be paying in operating costs. And these are their expenses.
And
every day.
revenue is probably, how would the revenue model work? They'll be probably very, very difficult to sort of figure out.
Yeah,
Because like
because-
what revenue models nowadays, they can't use a monthly subscription, right? For this, that would be
They
pretty
might
hard.
be.
They might, but it would have to be really expensive, in my opinion. No,
Yeah,
to
but
get
it's
covered.
also, the thing is, right now, it's also very useful.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people paying that. I see a lot of people possibly saying like, it's going to save me at least 6 hours a day for like research of certain things. It depends on what you do with your time.
It depends on what you do. It depends on the person. They might even have specific packages related to what your use is for the software.
Exactly. But right now, using the hardware that they're currently using, the limitations of their chips, maybe once we integrate quantum computing hardware into the computers and servers that they use, and that may be another 10, 20 years, only then will we use it for free. But definitely, if something like this is going to be launched anytime soon, it's going to be very expensive to operate, especially at a large scale. Because the demand is there. Everybody's going to want it, right? It's like your own personal assistant. It's crazy.
Okay. So we talked about how AI, like ChatGPT, can replace other forms of technology, basically like Google, right?
Yeah.
But what about AI that replaces tasks and skills? Like, for example, day-to-day jobs. For example, sorting through resumes, determining potential candidates for jobs, stuff like that. Like the job of a human resource employee, right? What do you think about ChatGPT or some sort of software, artificial intelligence overall, replacing those roles and jobs?
This is the big thing. This is the thing that everybody keeps asking themselves.
Will AIs replace us / kill us?
Yeah. Kill us, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe,
But the
later.
idea is like, will they replace certain jobs? Most definitely, 100%. I think Bloomberg was the released a stat that said 95% of accountants will lose their jobs within the next 10 years because of AI. Forbes said that 40% of jobs will be replaced by AI in the next 15 years. So think about like the most common ones: receptionists, proofreading, lawyers for certain things. Obviously, we already talked about accounting, customer support, maybe doctors in certain cases. It's definitely going to be helpful for doctors. It's not going to replace them entirely, but it's going to be like a helpful tool for them. Courier services, trucking, which is facing a massive shortage, especially here in Canada. Right? These are all things that really, really could help. But these are the 2 points that I actually want to discuss with you, because I don't think that's a problem.
No.
At all. Not even a little bit. Well, first of all, it will save money. It will save labor. And the fact is, like, the vast majority of jobs in the future they don't exist yet. Right? So it's not that fact that, like, for example, during the Industrial Revolution, people used to work in mills and factories and stuff like that. And as soon as we started going into a technological, more service-based industry and economy, did everybody just freak out, think to themselves like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to work anymore? No, they just ended up thinking about how to integrate themselves into the economy, working harder to educate themselves, and they found themselves in different types of jobs.
There were eventually like social welfare programs that helped like teach these people and get them on board. Like if you lost your job, right, there's welfare programs that would help you, like pay for your tutoring and stuff like that for those transformed positions, right? But I also will say, like, it is a problem in the sense that how long this sort of displacement in unemployment and like people switching their careers or losing their jobs will be.
And the reason being, how quick the AI ends up taking up their jobs.
Yes, basically, and how long. And how long that gap in terms of adopting those skills will take is mainly reason why that's going to be a problem is because the current education system is not ready for it. Barely anywhere do you see the importance of artificial intelligence being taught in business. I went through 4 years of university, and I only think 1 year worth of courses, and I only took like 2-3 courses within that year out of 10, where they actually mentioned that, you know, that AI is a very important factor. Machine learning is an important factor. And those were courses that were specifically dedicated to the idea of machine learning and, you know, data analysis and stuff.
Yeah, so you could have chosen not
to even do those courses, and I wouldn't have known, right? So
yeah, but this is why I don't think it's actually an issue, even if it was the case that, you know, these people would be substituted overnight. Because we already are facing a labor shortage for only one reason. And one of the main concerns, for example, for Elon Musk was the idea of population collapse. People aren't having enough babies. We do not have a replacement rate for the current labor force. Eventually, people are going to have to take up maybe 2 to 3 jobs just to maintain the same productivity per person. And this is why it's very difficult for us to move forward without AI. So people are just going to have to be a little bit cognizant of which jobs are going to be targeted by AI and choose maybe more creative jobs, maybe jobs that are much harder to replace. And those are the jobs that they need to start focusing on and working to build their skills towards from today. Because as we can see, ChatGPT almost overnight made people question Google's monopoly in the future. Right. And those are thousands of jobs that are currently working at Google, right? If they end up failing and basically being superseded by OpenAI and Microsoft, because Microsoft ended up investing about $1 billion into OpenAI.
And now it's valued around 20 billion now.
Yeah, it's, bro.
I think
obviously, like, it's such a huge
crazy
thing.
How big of the market they have.
Yeah, but they're not the only people in the space, by the way. Like, chinchillas be made by DeepMind. So again, for just 2 reasons, just to simplify, just to summarize. First of all, we're not making enough babies to create a replacement rate for the current labor force. So AI is very much welcome, right? And the second thing is, it never stopped people before from adapting to the changes in technology. It's not going to stop them now.
Okay.
Right. It's going to make things easier, actually, if anything. Like, even if you had to change things, it's like, okay, I have a really smart AI system that can help me change things. All you have to do is like, hey, could you imagine asking ChatGPT like, hey, so I'm kind of worried that you're going to be taking my job. Is it all right if you tell me like which jobs are you least likely to compete with me on? and it'll most likely give you an answer, and it'll most likely be an accurate answer at that. So yeah,
I mean, this is where I wanted to refer to Accenture's research, is where basically they research in 12 different countries that they basically increase their productivity by 40%. That's a lot of time throughout someone's day where they can even divert towards other tasks, whether that's starting up their own company, focusing on family, right? Mental health improves overall as well, because you have to, AI helps solve those very tedious tasks as well that you don't want to spend hours doing, right? That sort of drain you entirely. So overall, I definitely agree. It's very much welcome, and I think it will help us. Help us grow.
Net positive for sure. Quality of life is going to increase. I mean, you
already see it.
There are a lot of people who've actually used ChatGPT to ask it for weight training tips, give it a training regimen for whatever their goals are, and it gave them their BMI and what they need to work towards in terms of a calorie deficit and all of this stuff. So basically, it's just exchanged the role of a personal trainer if you ever hired one, and they're very expensive. I'm doing this for free with a AI software. Could you imagine? There's no limit to the type of knowledge that it can provide you. Definitely going to hurt a lot of services that are basically knowledge disparity based, where they depend on the customer not knowing as much as they do, and their services are basically you don't need a lawyer right now to draft up your tenant and landlord agreements anymore. You can just ask an AI to draft it for you. You would have a very good draft of that, even if you tried it by yourself.
So what do you think are limits of artificial intelligence? What do humans have that AI will never have? Maybe even the super artificial form. What is something that humans will have?
Bro, no one will have a genuine answer to this.
Really? I have one.
We're at no. How could you?
Here's something. Here's something.
Very beginning of a technological revolution.
Okay.
Where we do not quite understand its potential. Its potential is growing exponentially because of the fact that its abilities will always yield much more than the sum of its parts. So, can you see the top of that? Do you know where it plateaus? Do you know where the weaknesses could be? Because I can bet you 100%. 40 years from now, whatever it is that we're guessing at on this podcast while people are listening, it's definitely not going to be it.
I mean, there's a futurologist, pretty well known. His name is Ray Kurzweil, right? He said around the year, he anticipates or calculates around the year 2045 is when we'll reach singularity with artificial intelligence. Basically means artificial intelligence would be on par with doing tasks that humans do. However, what I meant to say is, so in terms of tasks, it'll be able to do what humans do, but there's something missing from artificial intelligence, that a quality that humans will have and remain to have, which is emotional intelligence. Having emotions overall is something that artificial intelligence will either very difficultly mimic, it would be very difficult to mimic, or will not have at all. Or it might be a limitation that you want to keep with artificial intelligence, right? Sure, artificial intelligence can understand emotions, like facial recognitions. It can probably understand when you're sad, happy, or something, right? Maybe the tone of your voice understands something and respond accordingly. However, artificial intelligence in itself, generating emotions, creating emotions, it could be coded to react emotionally in a certain sense. Like, for example, if you're very sad, right, and I'm a robot, and you tell your expression, your tone of language is very you're emotional, you're upset about something. As a robot, maybe I respond to you in a much kinder tone, maybe, use very careful language, etc., right? But a robot will not in itself be able to generate those emotions. And I think that's something that...
I think you're giving human beings a little bit too much credit.
Really?
Yeah, because from a neuroscience point of view, of which, by the way, I'm studying.
Okay. Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, just speaking from a very casual sense, because even for neuroscience experts, this might be a little bit difficult to get a hold of understanding. But it's because of the fact that we do not understand emotions to its full extent, and how it's generated and how it integrates into our subconscious and conscious minds, and how it relates to our biological being and all of that stuff. Once we start to understand those things much more intimately, it becomes very easy to program that into the AI, right? there's nothing stopping AI from understanding just as much as we do, because we can always program that stuff into it, right? So as we come to understand human emotion, human intention, human psychology, especially its biological correlates, it'll become very easy for us to program
Implement them
into. Yeah, so there's nothing stopping that.
Okay, so you're basically saying the limits of AI is basically the limits of humans, essentially.
Yeah,
human
because
understanding.
think about it like this: when you said that if you looked at me, you would know that I'm sad or feeling sad from my tone, from whatever. You literally named the variables at which you would consciously or subconsciously understand my emotional state. Can you not do that for an AI?
I see.
Right? It's just because of the fact that we don't understand it enough. Even our ethics. So our ethics, especially.
So your reasoning, basically, if I were to use that same example, is, but I'm a human, is if you're sad, I'm generating the emotion of the same way of being, kind and polite and responsive to you. My emotion that's being generated could be thought of as a code. Oh, if Faraz is using these words, if Faraz's voice is this, if Faraz's facial expression is sad, I need to react kinder or politer or in a softer manner. Yeah. So basically humans also sort of can generate the emotions the same way AI can as well.
Yeah. Okay. But the one thing that you've mentioned that's actually very important is that the AI itself might not actually be emotionally engaged with you. So they wouldn't have an emotional response. So let's say you're sad about something, but it has nothing to do with me. There I can kind of remove myself from the situation, know how to mitigate it. But what if I know exactly what you're sad about? Maybe there was an altercation between me and you. Now the conversation and the way that we interact, it's very personal, and it's a situational thing that AIs would never do. Like you wouldn't, unless it was programmed to do so, you can
program to just record historical occurrences.
Yeah, but like also feel a sense of self, feel a sense of respect, and an understanding of itself and what it means for us to, for example, misuse it, abuse it, and so on. Only then we would get like a very odd mimicry of human behavior that isn't necessarily functional, but because the truth is what we want AIs to do is basically to be subservient to us. It's going to come down to the fact that if you're looking for someone who's going to emotionally empathize with you,
it's the empathy. Empathy is the word.
Yeah,
empathy is
like
the word.
It can mimic it. It can tell you exactly what they think,
but it's not really feeling it.
Obviously,
it's
they
not.
don't feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that kind of nuance maybe is lost on it.
The soul, I guess, and it is not there.
Yeah. But that's also maybe a good thing, because if it's not necessarily emotionally charged with something that you said to it, maybe
calculated decision making,
it will always put you first.
Yes, artificial intelligence, as it works, is a series of algorithms, right? And it always chooses the least amount of error, right? And so error, in our case, is when we react emotionally. That's our biggest margin of error in our decision making. AI doesn't have that. That's a good point you make. When we were talking just now, right, it reminded me of and this game came out, a video game, very popular video game, and I'm sure you know what I'm thinking about. Like I was visualizing this entirely, various scenes from that video game. Detroit Become Human, right?
I haven't played it.
Really?
No.
So Detroit Become Human, basically.
Tell me about it.
It's a universe, right, where artificial intelligent robots have been programmed almost to the point of superhuman, basically, aside from the factor of emotions. The biggest core theme of
physical and
intelligence, everything. It can react to human emotions as well. It bases a decision off of that. Everything we just talked about, how it can create emotion. It doesn't create emotion in itself, but it reacts to those emotions appropriately, right? That humans are feeling, right? You were mentioning how you and I, as humans, if we got into a fight, right, there would be that emotional connection there, right? We would understand each other. But there's various scenes from the show where there's a police officer robot, right, that is an amazing robot, calculated responses, performs amazing.
Yeah, it's just stoic.
Yeah, it's perfect. And then it partners up with a cop, right, who was one of the best investigators ever. Recently, is a drunkie or whatever, but like he hates robots. You'll find in this universe, humans hate these robots, right? Because of how emotionless they are. They took their jobs, etc. Right? There's a lot of prejudice against the robot. So basically, this altercation, right? This cop, his name is Hank, right? He's voiced by the same guy who played Patrick in SpongeBob. It's pretty funny. You got to look into it. Because he hates robots, right? He gets into fights with this police robot, mainly because that robot just can't feel empathy, right? And when they do get into a fight, what's the robot's reaction? It just pretends, it falsifies emotions, essentially. It recognizes that the officer Hank is upset, so he has to be, oh, I feel sorry, I understand your anger. However, we have a task to do, right? Or it just focuses on its mission, right? It's programmed to do something, but it's programmed to respond emotionally, not actually generate those feelings.
Yeah, but that's like two things to say. Two things to say there. Actually, one of the websites that I was researching into said that the one of the most likely jobs that would be substituted by AI is security.
Really?
Because it will be impartial. That's one thing, which is interesting because a lot of people would believe like, hey, you know, you would want an impartial, non-biased enforcer of the law or something like that. But even that's kind of, you know, dystopian. But the other thing that I was going to mention is for the robot to show emotion and demonstrate understanding of human emotion, they don't necessarily have to have emotion themselves, right? So the stoic treatment that robots that have that capacity of understanding emotion isn't necessarily because they lack emotion themselves. It's the fact that they weren't programmed to put those emotions beforehand, or at least like prioritize that with whoever they're interacting. They could do that. It's actually a very simple fix. The idea is like always care for the person that you're interacting with and put them above the job or them above. But even that decision-making process, it would need an incredible amount of fine-tuning.
Right.
Because what if you shouldn't take care of the person in front of you? What if whatever it is that you're currently doing as a job is much more pertinent than, I don't know, comforting a person who just had a very bad day? And you know, in a lot of...
How does an AI recognize when it prioritizes work?
Which to do. And that
the biggest difference between
a
humans
little bit
as
more
well.
difficult. Yeah. And that would, in fact, if anything, would require the machine learning algorithm to go through by experience.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it will have to make a couple mistakes before it gets there. And sometimes those mistakes are going to be way too large for it to be...
Yes. But I just think, honestly, it needs to be basically a superhuman at this point to determine what is the best ultimate outcome when it incorporates emotions and stuff like that. It's going to be very difficult.
But that also touches upon like our next subtopic, which is the idea of weaknesses in AI, especially in ChatGPT, for example. We've had a couple demonstrations. I used it a couple times. Like if you asked it, what's heavier, 1 kilogram of beef or 1 kilogram of feathers, and it will say beef. And again, like, very confidently gives you why beef is heavier than feathers. So the idea is like, well, they're both a kilo, but it doesn't matter. The weaknesses in AI in general is the idea that its intelligence is based upon the database that you've offered it.
Yes, and the rules you give it.
And the parameters that you've given it, and the entire provision of its functions is whatever parameters you let it operate within.
Yes.
The issue with that is, first of all, it doesn't think of anything beyond that. So if you look at ChatGPT or any of its ancillary functions or any of its competitors, what it did was like it scanned the entire internet. What if the internet was biased towards a certain outcome or answer that isn't necessarily true?
Right.
And that's very common. A lot of human beings already make that distinction.
Yeah, especially with social media and how it uses AI to give you what you just want to hear. Not necessarily the right thing, but just what most people are just wanting to know.
So if you, for example, ask it a question, which, for example, the vast majority of people do not know the right answer to, even though you might know the right answer to it, and you ask it, most likely will give you the wrong answer, right? Because it just based it on whatever is most popular. You're amplifying the most popular answer, right? But also another weakness, adding to that, because of the fact that it's so limited in its scope, is its ability to have abstract thought beyond that is also very difficult. So one thing that a lot of people make arguments about is, you know, AI is not going to be able to substitute creative work, right? But a lot of people will say, well, you know, what is creative work? Well, it might be an inspiration of previous creative works, and the accumulation of all those creative works to that point and your personal experiences have resulted in the creative work that you've produced today, right? So it's not necessarily unique itself. Pretty much something that sounds like what an AI would do, right? So how would you know that you're creative? Well, I would make the argument that the human mind has the capacity of creating abstract thought beyond its experiences, right? So its creative capacity is not limited to whatever the data set that they've been given is. In fact, it can generate totally new data points without necessarily having being fed that, right? So the majority bias, that's a huge, big thing.
Yes.
I believe like if you want this thing to be completely accurate, you're going to have to surf the web and completely sweep it clean of any misinformation.
GameStop to the moon.
Yeah, like
it's pretty much the same concept and idea.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same concept. And then you would have to give it an ability to be conscious in its operations of creating abstract thoughts outside of the data set, which we already know at the current moment AI can't operate.
Right, because it uses that database to base its answers on.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult. Definitely, I very much understand what you're trying to say here. Yeah. So given what you said, what about the malicious use of artificial intelligence? Like we can veer into that direction a bit. So like hacking, fraud, fake news, right? Deep fakes, for example. Like I'm really concerned about this mainly for the fact that you've seen how many videos, especially during like political elections, they use a lot of deep fake on Donald Trump, right? To create these various funny videos of him saying things that he never actually said. And I find it very interesting that this can happen to anyone now, because that was basically using voice recordings of Donald Trump's voice, correct? Collecting a database of that and then writing up a script as to what he should say, and then pieces it together and basically incorporates it to make a fake dialogue. And what scares me the most is, okay, maybe I don't offer up my voice. Maybe my voice isn't used anywhere, right? In particular, I mean, it's used right now on this podcast. A computer can easily snip through this and use my voice anywhere, for example. But like even just my phone itself, like I'm using a Pixel 7, right? New phone. What it does is, what's interesting is with this voice assistant feature, it recognizes my voice. It asks me for my voice the very first time I use it. I give it a couple samples and it recognizes my voice. I don't know if it uses sound signatures or whatnot. And basically if we're in a really loud environment and there's a bunch of people talking, it'll somehow pick out my voice from it based on what it knows I sound like. And the fact that it can determine that, I believe that it can also replicate my voice eventually to answer questions on my behalf. That I think that technology exists, and I think that's a concern with fraud, right? Obviously, it's a convenience in some cases, but I believe it can be used fraudulently because, for example, if you get on a call with your bank on your phone, right, you have to provide identification information, like I don't know what's your birth date, stuff like that, and sometimes some security measures actually use your voice in itself. If you have the exact same voice, it'll allow you to proceed further. What happens when an AI or a robot or hacker mimics my voice basically and hacks into my social, like my bank? What happens then? Like, what do you think about the malusage?
Here's why the malicious use of AI could be much worse or actually not as bad as we believe.
Okay.
Because first things first, if you ever use ChatGPT, there are actually URL links, sites that you can use to find out whether the essay that you asked it to generate was completely AI generated or not, with a very high level of accuracy. So you can do that for deepfakes as well to see if it was tampered with. You can also use that for voice recordings, whether it was tampered with as well. So there we can actually identify it. But the other thing that was kind of concerning was that these AI systems can very accurately pinpoint areas of vulnerability within code. And so if you were to hack into, for example, the CIA and just like somehow put in all the codes of the CIA website and you wanted to really go in, you can do that potentially with the right AI, with the right capabilities, you can. And so this could be much worse than what you've mentioned.
Than just simply fraud.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cases of fraud.
So national security, basically.
Yeah,
what you're saying, is that right?
I mean, like it's become very easy for scammers and fraudulent like hackers to steal your banking information during the era of the internet, more so than it was let's say 50, 60 years ago, when they really had to go up to a bank, point a gun, yeah, against someone who works at the bank and ask them for money, and they might walk away with $5,000, $6,000, not more than 20,000. Now they can walk away with much more. Like we've heard people like in crypto, for example, they stole billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So you go.
Yeah, this is why cybersecurity in return is on the opposite end of AI growth is on a rise as well. Cybersecurity is in huge demand like crazy. Just as much as AI growth is happening, cybersecurity is out there.
So what do you think the big businesses can do to avoid the malicious use of their AIs? Obviously, ChatGPT already attempted to do that. People found ways around its restrictions to enter the web or whatever it is. So what do you think the businesses should do about it?
Yeah, so one, I think improve on their cybersecurity. That's one, obviously. But to be more specific, first thing is training on humans, right? You want to train the humans first to identify malicious use of AI or general trends, right? Because AI, artificial intelligence right now is not perfect, right? You first want to get the humans to understand.
Yeah, but do you think humans are capable of doing that?
I think humans at the current stage will be capable in identifying basic patterns, right? Because you remember how you mentioned that AI, artificial intelligence's limit to growth, right, is limited by human growth, right? At the moment. So basically, once humans learn what these patterns are, so I think training humans to start.
And AI can help them understand that, by the way.
That as well. So AI can also help them understand, but then also humans in return add on to it and help program these. And this is why programming and like jobs will open up within cybersecurity as well. Cybersecurity programming AI and stuff, right? So I think that's number two is like, okay, them also train, basically providing data, providing patterns for the AI to learn and basically become a AI versus AI situation where it's basically AI versus counter AI.
It's currently used actually right now, like fraud detection AI is very popular. But that's actually like very interesting because I think this whole AI race is going to change the dynamic between the current incumbents of the tech industry, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, whatever it is, because all of them understand that it's very important for them to evolve moving forward. And this is why you see Microsoft investing into OpenAI, currently has DALL-E. In case nobody knows what DALL-E is, it's basically like a software. You give it a prompt to create an image and it'll create an image for you, regardless of how specific it is. Like you can say like an astronaut training a dog in the middle of space and it will do that for you. It's insane. But it's going to integrate that into Windows. And this is where people thought, for example, that Google would never come down from being the king of search engines. Now it's very vulnerable in the next few years. For that seat to be taken, it could be anyone's game. You know what I mean? And so what do you think about that? Because I think Microsoft is giving Google a run for its money because Google's search engine right now it's clearly not the best search engine anymore.
Okay.
Right?
I find that's an interesting question, and definitely also you gotta also add on the fact that most of the operating system around the world is provided by Microsoft, right? Windows, people use that everywhere, and definitely that's gonna add on to it. But I do feel like Google's not out of this race. I think Google has a very, very important role in artificial intelligence growth in the market.
It's making its own.
And I think it's making its own. But aside from that, I think it has a huge advantage, mainly because of how much data they have. The data collection that Google has is ridiculous, obnoxious, because it not only collects like search results, right? You forget it collects what sort of videos you watch. It collects what your schedule looks like, your calendars, right? What do you do throughout your day? Like your phone, right? If I'm using an Android phone, it calculates all that. It takes that into account. Like for example, how much time I spend on my screen, what apps I use, right? What purpose, what the purpose of those apps are, all that sort of stuff.
But is that a competitive advantage?
So I think the data is a huge competitive advantage because
it's for sale though.
That's the thing. You can sell that data at a very, very high price to the point where it's
a lot of it's already available.
It's a setback, but it's a setback for your competitors. You could do that once you start realizing the demand for that data is rapidly increasing for artificial intelligence. Just raise the price. Just raise the price so your competitors are like, damn, we either need to step our game up or pay the money.
But the vast majority of the information is already sold. You don't necessarily have a monopoly on the information if it's already given out. You know what I mean? Because right now, ChatGPT used Common Crawl, which basically is a company that crawls over the internet, takes all the information and puts it into one data bank, and that's what ChatGPT used for its AI machine learning process, where basically it will take time for it to learn how to respond to prompts properly and all that. A lot of the information is already available.
Right.
Are you going to say that any future information now is going to increase the price? Well, will you still be the main search engine by that time where that's important? You know, I think they've already forfeited that competitive advantage. There's definitely a competitive advantage there. The thing is, Google's not showing its cards.
There's another advantage that Google has because it's been part of AI and machine learning for a very long time, right? It's perfected. Google has so many data analysts, so many data scientists, right, that work on their machine learning models, so many programmers and developers that it's scary to think that their accuracy for their machine learning and deep learning models is like 89%, 90% almost, which is, I kid you not, if you've done some sort of machine learning modeling and stuff, you know, is quite impressive. Because what this means is if their accuracy is around 89% for their machine learning, that just means that if they apply that database, apply that machine learning to artificial models, that's a very accurate model. It's a very scary accurate model.
Yeah, I can't wait for Google to respond to OpenAI. I really can't, because whatever it is that they're going to show, they need to make sure that they show the fact that they have the edge and not by a margin.
Right.
They need to show that they have complete superiority over the next best thing, whatever the alternative is. Right. And it will also mean like a very new business environment for everybody to operate in. Obviously, no one can compete with these big companies. Most likely, they're the ones who will hire 5,000 different developers to focus on making this AI perfect. But there will be a second layer of people who will use that AI to potentially make their own AI projects. Just like, for example, Amazon uses pretty much the entire Chinese manufacturing industry for its business. And it's a second layer to that. They'll do very similar things with their own projects. Entrepreneurs are going to be building up on that. We've seen the same thing, for example, with crypto, with their projects, for example, people building different businesses on the basis of the blockchain architecture of the Ethereum network, right? So that's a second layer to it. You would find very similar business ideas built on the architecture of maybe OpenAI's GPT-3 or GPT-4 or whatever it is, right, in the future. Maybe even Google's.
Right.
And we'll wait to see. There's just huge amounts of business opportunity in the future, because this is the point
the
where
market is expected to grow.
Changing.
They're expected to go on a year-to-year basis 30%, sometimes almost even double, apparently, in terms of revenue and growth overall. AI, artificial intelligence in our lives, from the very lowest point of, using our voice to basically schedule an appointment or a meeting on our phone, all the way up to this potential of where it can sense air particles, right, to determine whether somebody could potentially have lung cancer based on the way they breathe, right? That's a very imaginative, thought about AI, but it's very possible, right? Super artificial intelligence is very far away. I wanted to know, just as a fun sort of question, if there is something out there that you would want a problem or a task that you want artificial intelligence to do, a superhuman task or any sort of task that you want it to do right now, given right in this current time period, not like 20 years in the future, 30 years, right now, what would that task or job be?
You're telling me that like I can pick like
anything
any AI function,
be imaginative.
Right now.
It doesn't have to be an AI function. It can be any sort of task that you feel like AI cannot do right now, right? What would that be? It can literally, it's something imaginative.
I mean, the benevolent side of me wants to think that like maybe an AI system that can figure out to cure the cancer, but I don't know how.
It's
I don't
out
know.
there.
I don't know how imaginative I can be because currently, like, I don't know if that's possible.
People talk about micro robots going in through your blood vessels.
Yeah, but like, what's the function of that? You want something that's going to be useful. You know, the
But
movie.
pow pow pow! They defeat the cancer cells. Boom, solved.
No, that's not how it works. Don't you love it when people who know nothing about medicine start giving
Just defeat the cancer. Hello, have you not seen Magic School Bus? Just
Oh yeah,
that simple.
All this.
We figured it out 20 years ago for us. What are you doing? I asked you to think about the future, not the past.
Yeah. Okay. Real talk.
Yeah.
Jarvis, like a personal assistant.
Personal assistant Jarvis. That
Yeah,
accurately
like,
everything.
As smart as Jarvis.
Perfect.
Bro, I can
see.
do anything with that thing.
Nice.
Genuinely, I think Iron Man isn't as half as smart as he think he is.
It's-
Simply because of the fact that like he has one of the most like useful, smart, intelligent computers, and all he really does is basically like say a couple things and maybe I don't even think that he understands what he's talking about half the time. I'll be real with you.
You want me to give my response?
Sure.
I mean, I was about to say it's different to what you were thinking, but I think it's actually very similar. It's basically something that can restrict my emotional response factor when it comes to decision making, right? So basically become the artificial intelligence. So what Elon Musk is trying to do, right? You know how like we talked mostly today about how artificial intelligence separated from humans or working side. What about artificial intelligence inside us? Neuralink, basically, right? Something like enhancements, basically a way so that it recognizes when I'm about to make a decision. If I make a decision and it recognizes that I'm about to use inaccurate emotional response, it counters that with the speed of light, right? Counters that and basically deters
So
me
you
from
just become
using.
a stoic robot.
Well, not actually deters me, but
Man, just
basically
go to therapy,
requires
bro.
me, basically suggests,
just control your emotions.
suggests. Okay, I'm sorry.
learn
I'm very
how
emotional.
to.
I cry very easily. I watch anime and I cry on many occasions.
I hope this doesn't make the episode.
Why? This is the perfect way to end.
Why would you end it that way, though?
It's been a long day. I think this is
Been
a
long
very.
day, so you're
I
just
think
gonna
this.
go home and watch anime and cry.
Yeah, pretty much.
Aw.
Okay, so look, hey man, if I'm very emotional, I tend to make very rash decisions.
I'm
Okay,
showing my audience members how toxic I am right now.
exactly. Anyway, the truth is out. Okay, this is why you need that emotional
I'm getting
robot
canceled
control.
tomorrow.
This is
I
why
guess
you
I
need
don't need it.
Neuralink.
Apparently, I'm just too stoic already. All right.
All right.
Yeah, but that was a good way to finish off. Honestly, that's a good question. Hopefully, like all of our
It's like a
audience
make a
members-
wish. It's like making a wish. Like, what would you want achieved in this world?
Yeah, like what? Like if you rub the lamp and
Yeah,
the genie
a
came
genie.
out, it's like, and it's like, as long as it's an AI, what can we do for you,
Yeah, I like how we chose very selfish responses instead of choosing something like "Let's save the world."
bro? What does saving the world even mean?
You know what's funny? Artificial intelligence, the way the limitations work on it, right, is that if you told a robot to basically solve or end world hunger, or basically save all the endangered species in the world, the robot, it doesn't have the limits set on it or rules to define its parameters.
It will
It will
completely
basically
wipe us off.
it'll kill all the humans as the best optimal solution in saving the endangered species.
I don't think it would because we kind of some of the animals grew.
At least it'll
very
kill a
dependent
very
us.
large portion of humans. Probably keep some alive is to be a part of the food chain. But I think that's basic. That's
It's
basically
not just a part of the food chain. If we go away,
Uh-huh.
the bees would actually suffer because of the amount of honey they produce.
I see.
And so now, if the bees go away, all
Man,
plants,
artificial intelligence, you
and
can-
vegetation, flora, fauna, whatever you want to call it, it's just it's all gone.
It's endless.
Yeah, so we're that like one toxic person that isn't good for you, but you kind of need them to be there.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. So if will a robot really identify that? I don't know. But this is somehow where some people consider the fact that this is the fun little idea where robots could potentially kill us. It's not an idea of will robots kill us.
Why do you
It's
want to finish it off like this? man? Here's the fun idea about it. Like, what do you mean
fun idea.
idea?
Fun idea about AI. Instead of robots actually learning to kill us, we accidentally teach it to kill us. There we go.
Honestly, that question was a really good question to end it off on. Like, I'd love for the rest of the audience to deliberate on it a bit, because whether we like it or not, we're going into that future.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Hopefully everybody enjoyed. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Peace.
Bye.